When someone like Scarlett Johansson is cast as the lead in an adaptation of a Japanese comic franchise, it's important to understand that the ensuing anger isn't just about that movie. And it's not just about Tilda Swinton playing a Tibetan character in Marvel's Doctor Strange, or Emma Stone claiming to be part Chinese and Hawaiian in Aloha.
My dad was half Chinese and half Hawaiian, and my mother's Swedish.
It's how all these casting decisions combined, dating back to the earliest days of Hollywood, have made Asians invisible at best, and at worst, the butt of a cruel joke. That's why fans notice when the characters from the Last Airbender cartoon become much lighter skinned for the live-action movie. And when John Rico goes from being Filipino in the novel Starship Troopers to being played by someone named Casper Van Dien.
I want to try it again, but this time, we need you to do an accent.
The fact is, things aren't getting better fast enough for Asians in Hollywood. In 1944, Aline McMahon was nominated for an Oscar for her Yellowface role in Dragon Seed. Later on, Linda Hunt would win an Oscar for playing a Chinese man in The Year of Living Dangerously.
Right. Billy Kwan.
That was 1982, almost 40 years later. Basically everything else in the country had changed, except white people being cast as Asians. For a solid 2 decades, the Chinese detective character Charlie Chan was played by white men in makeup. But that was the 30s and 40s, right? Well, here's Jim Sturgis and Hugo Weaving reincarnated as Koreans for parts of Cloud Atlas.
Who are you?
Everyone remembers Mickey Rooney's infamous 1961 performance in Breakfast at Tiffany's as just fully unacceptable and racist, right? Well, 24 years later, Joel Grey delivered this Korean caricature in Remo Williams.
I think I can do something with him.
And another 2 decades later, here's Rob Schneider in I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry.
Now the lings are a symbol of eternity.
Schneider is a quarter Filipino, so progress? Or how about Peter Sellers' 1968 role as a clueless Indian man at a dinner party?
Oh, you really crushed my old Indian hand.
A full 20 years later, Fisher Stevens was in brownface for Short Circuit 2.
It's not possible. We are the type of people who have everything.
And another 24 years after that, Ashton Kutcher is doing this in a Pop Chips commercial.
I'm Raj. I'm a Bollywood producer. I'm looking for the most delicious thing on the planet.
Arguably worse than white people playing Asian characters is white people playing real-life Asian humans, which is what happened to Cora Lyjak in Argo, and to Jeffrey Ma, who appeared in the movie 21 as this character, even though in real life he was this guy.
Ben Campbell was the most gifted student at MIT.
It's not surprising that directors want to hire big names to attract producers and funding, but when they want to do stories about Asians and won't cast Asian actors, they should know that the blowback against that has been building for the better part of a century.
Sakini by name, interpreter by profession.
One of the early examples of a white cast playing Asian characters.
So Yellowface wasn't the only problem with the way Asians were being depicted in Hollywood. Sometimes it wasn't necessarily a white actor, but still we were seeing a lot of really, really racist caricatures of Asians in movies. So here's a movie that you may have seen or heard of called 16 Candles. It was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid, and not being a particularly woke middle schooler, I didn't see any problem with it. Now as an adult, I go back and watch it and I see a huge problem with it. So I'm just going to show you a couple of clips from this movie.
What's happening, hot stuff?
Very clever dinner. Appetizing food fit neatly into interesting round pie.
It's a quiche.
How do you spell?
Well, you don't spell it, son. You eat it.
I love visiting with the grandma and the grandpa and writing letters to parents and pushing lawn mowing machines so grandpa's hyena don't get disturbed.
Hernia.
So this character Long Duc Dong, which is a Vietnamese name for a Chinese character who's played by a Korean actor who at one point is wearing a kimono and shouting bonsai. He's kind of just a running joke throughout this movie in a really problematic way. So as you can see, There's a lot of historical references. There's a lot of references to various caricatures that were commonplace in the media landscape for quite some time, and some would argue still appear every so often. One panel that I wanted to point your attention to that will come up in your later reading includes also an example of how this played out not in fictionalized media, but in the real world. So here's a panel where Chin Key is singing that Ricky Martin song, She Bang, yeah baby, when she move, she move. And this is a reference to an American Idol audition that took place in the early 2000s. So I'm going to play it for you. It's a guy named William Hung. So he auditioned for American Idol, and a lot of Americans got really obsessed with him. I'll tell you more about that in a second.
And I currently studying at UC Berkeley right now. But it's kind of odd, like why I chose to even audition in the first place, because my major is civil engineering, which is totally not related to music. But I really like music. I want to make music my living. Talk to me, tell me your name. You blow me off like it's all the same. You lit it fuse and I'm taking away like a bomb. Yeah, baby. Talk to me, tell me your sign. You switching sides like a Gemini. You playing games and now you're hitting my heart like a drum. Yeah, baby. She bangs, she bangs. Oh, baby, when she moves, she moves. I go crazy cause she looks like a flower, but she stings like a bee. Like every girl in history. She bangs, she bangs. I'm wasted by the way
Thank you. You can't sing, you can't dance, so what do you want me to say?
I already gave my best, and I have no regrets at all.
Good for you.
That's good. That's
excellent,
good. That's
William.
good.
That's the best attitude yet.
You know, I have no professional training of singing or dancing, so.
Well, there's the surprise of the century.
William, you're the best. You're the best.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you,
a great
William.
day.
Okay,
Thank you, William.
Thank you.
So like I said, this guy blew up and he started making appearances on talk shows. This is kind of before viral media, but here's a clip from him on one of the late night talk shows.
Next guest is best known for his rendition of Ricky Martin's She Bangs at the Fox American Idol audition. Since then, has become an overnight pop cultural phenomenon, ladies and gentlemen. Here he is tonight performing, yes, that very song from his debut CD, Inspiration. Please welcome William Hung, ladies and gentlemen.
Gene Yang, the author of American Born Chinese, in an interview, he talked about how he and some of his friends and other Asian Americans he knew were kind of troubled by this. They didn't think that people were obsessed with William Hung for any good reasons, but rather that there was something mocking in it because of the way that he embodied a lot of the stereotypes of Asian men that were circulating at the time. So there's a couple of questions that ask you to respond to how we might be seeing things changing in the media landscape today, or if you think maybe things aren't changing fast enough. There's some questions that I'm asking you to respond to see how you feel. All right, thank you, and I look forward to digging into ABC with you. Bye.